everybody, welcome back to American History with Mr. Finn. Today we are getting to the Constitution. The Constitution of the United States of America is what basically outlines our country. Who is allowed to do what, how does the government work, offices, all of those things fall into the Constitution. So let me write Constitution up over here. This is what we're talking about today. Constitution. The Constitution is, again, what outlines our country and sets up our government. Today, however, we're going to have a constitutional convention. Constitutional convention. So, Constitutional Convention. Let's backtrack here. Let's get caught up to speed. If you remember, the Revolution's over. That's fine. We had the Articles of Confederation, which were fairly weak because they could not tax and the states had more power. We had no strong national government. So it really just didn't work, and there would be upheaval, and eventually everything would break down under the Articles of Confederation. We talked about Shays' Rebellion. Shays' Rebellion showed most people in America, like, we probably should do something, maybe revise the Articles of Confederation because probably isn't going to be good as we move forward. So we had two groups of people that we're dealing with. We had nationalists, these people who were like, we need a strong national government. That's the only way to rule. I know we don't want a king, but we must have a strong national government. Otherwise, the whole system will break down. And then you had other people who wanted no strong national government and really believed in like states' rights, like the states should be the ones who govern themselves. So we had this problem of people who wanted a strong national government and people who were afraid of a big, strong national government, which makes sense considering that we just came off a revolution to a king in England. They did not like the idea of a strong national government. So at this Constitutional Convention, we are going to see how do we get the Constitution? Because we start with the Articles of Confederation and we come out of this with a Constitution. So let's jump into this. I'll try to make it as simple as possible. We have two plans that are brought to the Constitutional Convention. One is the Virginia plan and one is the New Jersey plan. And so with these two plans, we have two groups of people thinking different things. Now, I'm going to outline this because I don't know if you know the size of states, but the Virginia plan is going to be the big states plan. So this is all about the big, we'll write it real big, the big states. And the New Jersey plan is the plan for the small states. So, big states want this, the Virginia, small states want the New Jersey plan. Well, let's figure out why they want that. Why do big states want this? Why do small states want the New Jersey plan? Big states. Well, the real sticking point, there's a lot of similarities between these two plans, which is good because then maybe we can come together and solve something. But there's one big sticking point. And the Virginia plan is going to say we want a two-house legislature. However, we want the legislature to be built based on population. So, Virginia plan is going to be based, and I'll explain this, based on population. So what does that mean? What's based on population? This is the term. I'll write it right on here. Representation. All right, so let me explain this because I'm writing a lot of words here. All right, in the Virginia plan, what they're saying is we want this legislature, the people who make the laws for this national government. We want the people, we want the number of people that can come from each state to be based on how many people live in that state. So under this Virginia plan, this is why it's the big state plan, larger states are going to have more people living in it. Now, the more people that you have living there means that that state can send 20 people to the legislature, to the people who make the laws. They can send 20 people. But then, New Jersey's a small state. New Jersey's like, wait a second. We don't have that many people. So if the representation, if the number of people we can send there is based on our population, you got 20 people to go there. We get 2. How fair is that? New Jersey isn't going to have any power. They're scared. They're like, wait a second. If you're sending the number of people based on how many people live in each state, that means who's going to have all the power? Big states are, because big states have a lot of people. They're like, oh, we got 1 million people. Great. We can send 30 people. Great. And New Jersey's like, wait a second. We're going to have our 2 people here? And they're going to be like, well, we don't think so. And then the 30 people from Virginia are going to be like, sorry, we vote. We have more people. You're out of luck. So the small states do not like this plan of representation based on population, because they're like, we don't have a lot of population. Instead, they keep something from the Articles of Confederation. Under the New Jersey plan, each state continues to or gets 1 vote. And the big states are like, what? You're crazy. Each state gets 1 vote. All the people live here in Virginia. All the people live here in Pennsylvania. How does that equal? So your 5 people in your state can get the same voting power as the 500 people in our state? That's not fair. You only have this many people. That's not fair at all. How do we solve this problem? Because neither big states or small states are going to agree to this, this setup. Both plans together in the middle. I'll put it right here. We're going to see this executive branch and a judicial branch. All right, so that falls into this category and this category. So it's like, all right, we have some things that are similar, but really it's coming down to this legislature. How are we, because we have the 3 branches we looked at a little bit. We're going to look at it once we make the Constitution. But today we have the legislative branch, executive branch, and the judicial branch. So let's solve this legislative branch problem. So in this solution to this problem, we do get a solution because obviously we have the Constitution. We come up with this plan. It's not really a plan compared to these plans, but a bicameral legislature. All right, so again, legislature makes the laws. Just think legislator, legislative, laws, people that make the laws. And we're going to have a bicameral. If you look at the prefix, bi means a 2-house legislature. So what does this look like? Well, I guess I'll do it over here. Do an arrow. We are going to come up with, here's what it is. Our legislative branch is represented by, in our previous notes, you probably saw it. If you don't remember, I'm going to write it right here. It's represented by Congress. So if you've ever heard the term Congress before, now you know that Congress are the people who make the laws for our country. So we have Congress. Now here's where the solution comes in. We're going to have 2 houses, bicameral. We are going to have the House of Representatives. I need a little more of an arrow to come to this side. And the other is going to be the Senate. So now we have two groups of people that make up our Congress. It's a bicameral legislature. So we have the House of Representatives and we have the Senate. Now here's where the compromise comes. In the House of Representatives, they are going to take the Virginia Plan's idea. All right. So in the House of Representatives, the number of people who are there from each state is based on population. So House of Representatives, make sure I can separate it so you have the notes here. I'll put it down here. So it's underneath. Based on population. So, in the House of Representatives, look at it today. Same thing today. Let's take a big population state. Ready? California. California has a lot of people living there. So, Today, in California, they have a number of representatives that can go to be in the House of Representatives. Now, who's going to have more representatives? California, who has a ton of people living there, or Kansas? Kansas is in the middle of our country, doesn't really have a huge population. There's less people living there. So there's less people living there, and there's way more people living in California. Who's going to have more representatives in the House of Representatives? Yeah, same thing today. It's the same way today. California is going to have more representatives in the House of Representatives than Kansas, even today. So it's still the same way. Based on population, that's how many people you get to send to be in the House of Representatives. Now, let's get to the Senate. Why do the small states agree to this? Well, we have another house that is going to be the Senate. And in the Senate, each state gets two, I'll write it big, two people. So the Senate, each state gets two people. They get two senators. So let's see. Let's do another quick quiz. Today, let's use California and let's use Kansas again. Today in 2020, California has how many senators? 2. Kansas has how many senators? 2. They're equal in the Senate. In every state, each state gets 2 senators to be in the Senate. So you have this bicameral legislature, and this is going to be the way that these two plans come together. These people who are at this constitutional convention are going to come together over this bicameral 2-house legislature, which is a pretty smart move. It's a good way to have a solution to this problem. Go ahead and pause it and write that down if you have not been, if I've been in the way. Then you can get it all, because we have one more thing to talk about. There's one other issue, and that issue comes with the representation. Because there are some states out there who go, wait a second. If we're basing this on population, we should be able to count a certain group of people. And this is where we get into the South. So in the South, you are going to see a higher population, higher number of slaves. Slavery was going on during this time, and in the South, they had an agricultural, farming lifestyle, and so the number of slaves that existed in the South was higher than in other places because slaves were primarily used by the South for farming purposes, because they just had large plantations. Now, because they have a higher number of slaves, these Southern representatives say, wait a second, if we're basing it on population, let's count our slaves. And that way we get more people in the House of Representatives. And the northern states are like, whoa, hold on. The South claims that slaves are property, and now you want to count them as representation, as a part of your population? I don't know if that's quite fair. And so what happens because of the South insisting on having their slaves counted, they breach another compromise. And it's not a good thing, but at the time, this is what they come up with. It's called the 3/5 compromise. And the 3/5 compromise basically says this: well, listen, we'll count the number of slaves that you have. However, we're going to multiply it by 3/5. That way, it's not counting the whole of the people who live there, because again, the South, you insist on saying that slaves are property, and so if that's the case, then we're not going to count them as a full group of people. Again, in today's world, it definitely is not politically correct in any way, shape, or form. However, during this time period, slavery being a part of the norm for these people, this is a compromise. And so to them, although to us we would say, hey, this is a little unsettling. This isn't the best way to go about things. To them, it was purely a compromise, or purely looking at it factually, because they didn't have our view, obviously, of slavery that we have today, which we know clearly is not right in any way, shape, or form. However, in order to solve their problem at the time, the 3/5 compromise is going to, for our definition purposes, count slaves for representation purposes. And so they're going to count slaves for representation purposes based on the 3/5 compromise. So the group of people, the group of men who were at the Constitutional Convention, have come up with their compromises. They can walk out of that room and say, listen, we have a constitution, we have 3 branches, we have figured out what we're going to do with the South, we've made every state representative as happy as we can, and we'll break down the outline of the Constitution. If you have government class, which you might have it now, you might have it in the future, you might have already had it, you really take a deeper look into the Constitution and see the different parts of it. But for us, we're going to look primarily just at the basics, the 3 branches, again, who represents who, and all of those things. So moving on today, all I want from you is your notes. Make sure you turn those in today for participation and attendance purposes. And on that note, hey, you guys have been doing great. I'm really impressed with all of the work so far, and I look forward to seeing you next class.